In the not-so-distant future, humanity stopped leaving genetics to chance. Babies were no longer born. They were made, each embryo carefully screened, edited, and perfected before birth. Diseases were eliminated. Disorders became theoretical. Every child a designer product of science. It wasn't just the norm, it was law. Success was no longer earned, it was coded in. For Vincent Freeman, life started the old way, by accident. His parents chose natural birth against medical advice. The moment he arrived, the hospital ran his DNA through the system, a 99% probability of heart failure, 60% chance of manic depression, a whole list of predispositions, defects, risks, life expectancy, 30.2 years. The world wrote him off at birth. His parents didn't know what to do with him. They gave him a name, raised him as best they could, and tried to believe he might turn out okay. But even they couldn't deny it. In a world built on certainty, Vincent was a walking liability. Teachers saw his file and wouldn't let him play sports. He'd scrape his knee and be sent home for a week. Nobody said it outright, but everyone treated him like he was already halfway dead. Eventually, his parents decided not to make the same mistake twice. They returned to the clinic and ordered a second child, this time the right way. A boy. Guaranteed superior in every measurable way. His name was Anton. From the beginning, Anton outpaced Vincent in everything. He was taller, stronger, smarter, faster. He hit every developmental milestone early, just like his genetic profile promised. Their father, never subtle, made it clear who he expected great things from. Vincent learned to live in the shadows of DNA. Still, there was one game the brothers played that no amount of engineering could prepare for. They called it chicken. They would swim out into the ocean side by side, pushing farther with every stroke, waiting to see who would turn back first. Anton always won. Always. But Vincent never stopped dreaming. Not of the ocean, but of the stars. Space called to him. He learned the names of planets before he could spell his own. He memorized spacecraft models, orbital mechanics, stellar distances. He wanted to be an astronaut. But when he told people, they laughed. Not with your heart. His father didn't mean it cruelly, just realistically. In the age of genetic optimization, companies didn't waste resources on flawed candidates. And while the law said you didn't have to reveal your DNA to employers, companies found ways around it. DNA could be lifted from a handshake, a drinking glass, a comb, and with a single test, a career could vanish before it began. Vincent kept trying anyway. But no matter how many exams he passed or how hard he worked, there was no place for someone like him. The doors were closed before he even knocked. He was allowed to clean the floors of Gattaca Aerospace, but never dream of what flew above them. One day, rage overtook him. He challenged Anton to chicken again. They swam far, farther than ever before, and this time Vincent didn't stop. He didn't calculate the return. He didn't save anything for the swim back. He beat Anton, dragged him back to shore, gasping. Something cracked open inside him. He wasn't inferior, not really. Anton was stronger, but Vincent was willing to go further, to burn himself out completely. That's what made the difference. So he left. He said goodbye to his family, to the world that labeled him defective, and started over. He got a job, again, as a janitor at Gattaca. But this time it wasn't just a job. It was the foot in the door. By day, he cleaned toilets. By night, he trained. He read every file on navigation, propulsion, and zero-gravity mechanics. He memorized the sky, constellations, shuttle designs. He rewired his body with discipline, covered his weakness with willpower. But he knew none of it would matter, not unless he looked the part on paper. And that's when he found Jerome. Jerome Eugene Morrow had everything. Towering intellect, flawless body, gold medal swimmer, a life expectancy that reached into the triple digits, a man designed for greatness. But after a car accident left him paralyzed, he was discarded by the very system that created him. Vincent made a deal. Jerome gave him a name, DNA samples, everything he would need to pass as a genetically superior man. In exchange, Vincent paid for his lifestyle and for the silence of the broker who connected them. Vincent underwent surgery to match Jerome's height. He dyed his hair, wore color-adjusting contacts. His mornings became rituals, shaving every inch of his body, burning off stray cells, planting Jerome's skin samples under his nails, spraying his keyboard with fake dandruff, using urine bags and blood capsules. He walked into Gattaca not as Vincent Freeman, natural-born nobody, but as Jerome Morrow, top candidate, elite, untouchable. No interview, no questions, just the right genes. Inside Gattaca, he passed every test: flight simulators, technical trials, leadership evaluations. He was everything Jerome should have been, and more. His boss praised his cleanliness, not even a hair out of place, and told him the news. He would be the first human sent to Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Vincent smiled, nodded, kept his face blank. But inside, he was burning. He was going to space. He was going to prove them all wrong. He wasn't a mistake. He just wasn't designed. Vincent had made it further than anyone like him was supposed to. In a world that worshipped genetic precision, he had clawed his way to the edge of space using nothing but willpower, deception, and the body of another man. Every day at Gattaca was a performance, shaving away his identity, shedding skin, planting Jerome's DNA across his workstation like breadcrumbs of legitimacy. He couldn't afford a mistake. Not even a single strand of hair. And then, the director of the Titan mission was found dead. It happened just days before launch. An apparent murder inside Gattaca's walls. Authorities locked down the building. Security was everywhere. And that's when Vincent made his first slip. One hair, missed during his ritual, left behind at his desk. It didn't take long for the crime scene sweepers to find it. One strand, enough to crack the illusion, enough to expose that someone with invalid DNA had been inside Gattaca, enough to trigger an investigation that would threaten everything. The case was assigned to Detective Hugo, who didn't waste time. He began testing everyone in the building, questioning staff, pulling security footage. Vincent kept his calm, but inside he was unraveling. He returned home and told Jerome the truth, that someone had been killed, that his identity might be compromised. Jerome didn't flinch. He reminded Vincent how much they'd both sacrificed for this. They were too close to stop now. The next day, Vincent returned to work. He planted new DNA samples, combed the area for traces of his own. Still, the tension pressed in. His face appeared on screens across the building, disguised as a missing invalid, a janitor suspected of murder. No one recognized him. Jerome's genes were too strong. The deception had worked too well. No one believed a genetically superior man could be hiding in plain sight as someone born naturally. But the investigation wasn't stopping. Hugo pushed for full bio-screenings, blood, urine, saliva. Vincent had been careful, but he was running out of clean samples. Irene started watching him differently. One day, as he left a strand of Jerome's hair for the investigators to find, she secretly pocketed it. She ran it through the lab. The results confirmed the identity. Jerome Morrow. Perfect. Untouchable. But Irene wasn't satisfied. Later, as they stood together watching spacecraft lift into the sky, she told him something personal. She wasn't as perfect as the rest of them. Her genes carried a risk of heart failure, just high enough to keep her grounded. She could never go to space. Vincent told her she was more than her genes, that she was perfect in ways a test could never measure. She gave him a strand of her own hair and told him to decide for himself. That night, he let it drift away in the wind. Meanwhile, Hugo kept circling. He found an old cup Vincent had used, days old but still contaminated with his DNA. Now he knew the invalid had been working inside Gattaca this entire time, posing as someone else. Hugo doubled the testing protocols, ordered blood draws from every employee. When it was Vincent's turn, he slipped the lab technician a hidden vial, Jerome's blood. It worked. Another narrow escape. But the walls were closing in. Irene confronted him again. She knew he was hiding something. But instead of pushing, she leaned in and kissed him. She didn't need to hear the whole truth. Not yet. They made plans to spend what little time they had together before launch. That night, Vincent told her he had spent his whole life trying to escape Earth. But now that he was finally leaving, she made him want to stay. They spent the night together, brief and blazing, like two stars crossing paths before burning out. The next morning, she brought up the murder, said she knew he was connected somehow. Vincent insisted he wasn't. She didn't press. But trust had started to crack. Back at Gattaca, Hugo continued to push. But now his superior was taking interest. When Hugo showed him the genetic profile of the invalid, his superior brushed it off until he saw the face. Vincent Freeman. It meant nothing to most, but it meant everything to Anton, Vincent's brother. Anton had worked his way up the ladder of the very system that once favored him. And now he saw what Vincent had done, how far he had come. He ordered Hugo to back off. He would take it from here. Irene overheard enough to realize that Jerome Morrow, her Jerome, wasn't who he claimed to be. She warned Vincent. They were coming, and this time they were coming for both him and Jerome. Vincent raced home, told Jerome they had to disappear, scrap the mission. It was over. Jerome exploded. "You don't get to quit now." He reminded Vincent that everything had been for this, that no one would believe an imposter could rise this high, that the world would refuse to see the truth, even when it stared them in the face. So Vincent stayed. When the detectives arrived, Jerome greeted them himself, dressed clean, composed, perfect. He provided a blood sample. They tested it. It read as Jerome, flawless. The case seemed to die right there. But for Irene, the lie became truth. She stormed out, betrayed. Vincent followed. She demanded to know who he really was. He told her, "My name is Vincent Freeman. I was born the natural way. I was told I would die before 30. But I'm still here. I've passed every test. I've done every job they said I wasn't fit for. And now, I'm going to Titan." She stared at him in silence. "I'm not perfect. Neither are you. But we don't have to be." She didn't answer. But she stayed. Days later, the murder case finally broke. The mission director hadn't been killed by an invalid. He'd been murdered by a colleague after refusing to approve budget cuts. Vincent was cleared, at least from the case, but not from the scrutiny, not from Anton. Anton called Vincent in for a meeting, face to face, years since their last one. He told Vincent he couldn't go to Titan, that he didn't belong there, that it was dangerous, impossible, insane. Vincent snapped. "You still don't get it, do you? I beat you once. You almost drowned. I saved you." Anton refused to believe it, said Vincent didn't beat him. He beat himself. He'd held back. "Let's find out," Vincent said. That night they went to the ocean, one last game of chicken. They swam. No words, no calculations, just water and will. Anton turned back. Vincent kept going. When Anton finally caught up, he asked, "How are you doing this?" Vincent gasped between strokes. "I never saved anything for the swim back." Anton understood finally and said nothing. Back at Gattaca, the launch loomed. Vincent gave Irene a strand of his own hair. She held it in her palm, then let it go, just like he had. They made love one last time. Tomorrow he would leave Earth, forever. The sky was still dark when Vincent arrived at Gattaca for the last time. He had barely slept. Every cell in his body buzzed with anticipation and dread. He walked through the sliding glass doors as he had done 100 times before, but today the weight was different. Every polished tile, every strip of cold fluorescent light, every familiar hallway whispered the same thing. This is the end, or the beginning. He passed the portraits of past astronauts, faces sculpted by science, chosen by chromosomes. Soon his name would join theirs, but only if he made it through one final test, a urine sample, unscheduled. Last minute. Standard procedure, they said. His throat tightened. He hadn't prepared for this. The sample he carried with him had already been used. He had no backup. For the first time in years, he had nothing to hide behind. No strand of Jerome's hair, no vial of his blood, no bag of his urine. Just himself. He stepped into the white-tiled testing room. The doctor was already there, waiting. Vincent recognized him instantly, the same man who had tested him months ago, who'd once joked about his magnificent equipment. The man who called him Jerome every time, without a flicker of doubt. Vincent stood frozen, heart pounding. The doctor reached for the test kit. Vincent reached for his excuse. But then the doctor paused. He looked at Vincent, not at his ID, not at his file, at him, and he said, "I've been waiting for you." Vincent said nothing. "My son," the doctor continued, "he's like you. Born the natural way. They told us what he'd never be, what he'd never do, that he'd never be good enough. But then I watched you, every day, and I thought, maybe they're wrong." He handed Vincent a small vial. "Take the test," he said. "I won't see the results." Vincent nodded, stunned. For the first time in his life, someone had looked beyond his genes and seen him. The test was done. The sample passed. No alarms, no sirens, just silence. Vincent walked out and into the launch chamber. The shuttle towered above him like a cathedral, humming with fuel and fire. Gattaca officials buzzed around him with checklists and countdowns, but he barely heard them. He was somewhere else, years back, barefoot on the beach, swimming until his arms burned. He was in the janitor's closet, reading navigation manuals by stolen light. He was 10 years old, staring at stars through a foggy window, believing the impossible. He climbed the steps to the capsule. At the top, someone was waiting. Jerome, dressed sharply, hair combed, skin smooth, in his lap a silver case. "I've prepared enough samples to last you 2 lifetimes," he said, handing it over. Vincent blinked, trying not to show the emotion swelling in his chest. "You won't need them," Jerome added, "but just in case." Vincent smiled. "I'm not coming back," he said. Jerome nodded. "Neither am I." There was a pause. The air between them hung heavy, full of things they'd never say. "You gave me your dream," Jerome said quietly. "Let me give you mine." Vincent leaned in and embraced him, awkward, brief, honest. Then he turned and stepped into the shuttle. Strapped into his seat, the countdown began. Outside, Jerome wheeled himself into the incineration chamber. The walls gleamed white. The door hissed shut behind him. In his lap sat a final envelope. Inside, Vincent's story and his own. He pulled the switch. Flames engulfed him, and he smiled. Above, the engines ignited. The earth trembled, clouds parted. The rocket tore into the sky like a spear through fate. Vincent kept his eyes open. He wanted to see everything. As the shuttle escaped the pull of gravity, Earth shrank behind him, blue and white and quiet. A world that told him he was nothing, and yet here he was, in space. The stars surrounded him, silent witnesses to the lie he had lived and the truth he had become. For the first time in his life, there was no fear, no hiding, no pretending, just freedom. He closed his eyes and let it all go, and somewhere deep inside, the part of him they said would never survive beat stronger than ever. He wasn't perfect. He was more.